Today, around 50 wineries cultivate nearly 250,000 vines on prime plots between the Moselle riverbank and the forest-crowned heights. But the real story isn't just in the grapes. Among the most important professions tied to viticulture in earlier times were the coopers. Here, the master cooper begins a so-called stitz, or stutz. This 8-litre wine jug was used in the cellar to distribute topping up wine into barrels. Using a splitting iron and a mallet, short oak billets are split into narrow staves. The rough staves still show pale, soft sapwood at the bark edge. That part must go. The cooper removes it with his adze so only darker heartwood remains, and what he does next quietly shapes the final form. Beside the chopping block stands the shaving horse once found on every vintner's farm. On it, the cooper smooths the fibrous surfaces with a draw knife. With an iron lever bar operated by his feet, he clamps the stave at chest height, and this simple setup unlocks total control. For staves, only the best knot-free oak trunk wood was ever chosen, and there's a reason you're about to see. For each vessel, it was cut to length, split into billets and dried for 3 years in tall, stacked piles. Time does half the work. Once smoothed, the woods are shaped using a bending template, and this template decides everything. Taper is the secret ratio, the difference in width between the middle of a stave and its two ends. Small change, big impact. On the chopping block, the narrow sides are hewn down slowly and evenly. The amount removed is identical for every stave, and this is where the jug's bulging shape is born. Narrow at the top, narrow at the bottom, wider in the middle. This exact taper ensures that when the hoops are driven on, the staves press tightly against one another. After rough shaping outdoors, the real precision begins inside the workshop. quiet, focused. The manufacturing sequence is the same for all coopered containers. According to the curvature of the stave model, the rounding of the outer side is set first. For every vessel, there's a special model. One long leg marks the circular line of the vessel. One short leg defines the joining angle of the stave edges. Simple tools, exact rules. The rounding is formed on the workbench with a rounding plane and checked again and again. Next comes the jointer block, big, heavy, unforgiving. It's a downward-sloping planing stand made of smooth cherry wood, nearly 2 meters long, so even giant barrel staves can be worked. The woods are guided edge first over a razor-sharp plain iron mounted in the center. The angle-correct shaping of both narrow sides decides whether the joints will close tightly in the vessel's curve. This step makes or breaks the jug. So here, more than anywhere else, the cooper works with extreme care. That's why every single stave is checked multiple times against the model. If it's off, it's corrected. Only then is it set aside. No shortcuts ever. For last shaping, the almost finished staves return to the workbench. Waiting there is the rounding plane, already ground to a curved profile. With it, the cooper hollows out the inner side of each clamped stave, end to end. This final hollowing ensures that, during assembly, the jug rounds out evenly. And that payoff is what all the earlier precision was building toward. And now comes the moment everything starts to stand up, literally. The spot must be perfectly clean. Setting up means arranging all the staves by their upper ends into a hollow circle. The first stave is clamped inside the hoop with a screw clamp. The cooper then places the remaining staves one by one to the right, holding them together with one hand. Because the upper tapers fit tightly against the hoop, something unexpected happens. Once the circle closes, the staves lock each other in place. When the circle, roughly the size of the jug's opening, is complete, the clamp comes off. Now watch this. As the hoop is pushed downward, the staves, still spread apart at the bottom, begin to close. The shape suddenly appears. This open hollow body secured with more hoops is called a zarge or shell, and it already shows the jug's future form. But it's not finished, not even close. In the next steps, the staves must be drawn together at the lower end too until the wall is fully sealed. But there's a problem. Oak this thick won't bend. Not yet. First, the brittle wood must be softened with heat, so the shell is placed into a kettle with a little boiling water, producing hot steam. That steam changes everything. During the boiling time, about 2 hours, the cooper doesn't wait around. he starts the next critical piece. Over at the workbench, an anvil is mounted. Here, he shapes a strip of iron into a hoop, blow by blow. With each strike, the iron is driven apart along one edge so that, combined with the curve, a conical widening forms. Every hoop is measured separately for the exact spot where it will sit. This one is meant for the neck of a nearly finished stitzer, and it has to fit perfectly. Once the measurement is marked, the cooper overlaps the two ends of the band at that exact point. No margin for error. Using a hole punch, he drives rivet holes through both layers at once with a pointed drift. Finally, the rivet pin is inserted. The jug shell comes out of the boiling kettle, steaming, darkened. The protruding stave ends can be bent inward without cracking. For this, the cooper uses a barrel puller. Simple tool, brutal strength. As he turns it, a wire loop tightens around the open end of the shell. When their tapers and joining angles almost touch, he tests the first binding hoop, a brutally tight one. If it won't fit, the barrel puller tightens again and again. Once the staves are pulled together, the setting hoop can be driven forward with a hammer. Now, more hoops are added. As they're driven forward, with the setting hammer and striking hammer, the joints squeeze shut. At the opposite end, the first hoops are pulled on again to lock the shape from both sides. Once the shell is fully joined, the lower end is levelled with a plane. Holding a round shell steady on a workbench is harder than it looks, so the cooper builds a better clamping setup. The bottom, cut to size using a compass measurement, is now ready to go in. With the bottom locked in, the setting hoops are replaced by the final binding hoops. These were measured earlier for this exact moment. They're driven on brutally tight. As they seat, the stave joints clamp shut again. At the neck, the temporary hoops come off too and are replaced with new ones. The cooper doesn't rush this part. He checks the fit. Everything must be dead right. Using a plane, the cooper peels away thin shavings. As the surface clears, the oak's grain comes alive. This is the finish people actually see. But if you want to see a feat of craftsmanship even more incredible than this, be sure to check out this next video right here. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel right now.